Hello friends, welcome to Lukman IAS. So friends, today we are going to begin our journey with NCERT books friends, and we are going to start Democratic Politics of class 9th, and this is chapter 1, Democracy in the Contemporary World. Friends, before I start this chapter, I must tell you something that going line by line with the chapter is very difficult. That's why I will be highlighting those things which are very important and leaving many things for you also, and also I will try to emphasize on concepts, the conceptual clarity that is required friends. So let us begin friends. So in this chapter, in fact, democracy in the world, contemporary world, we have to study about the story of regime change in two countries. Then we have to study about the expansion of democracy in the world, and then we have to study about the phases of expansion of democracy in the world, and then whether there is democracy at the world level or not. These are three or four major topics of this chapter friends. In fact, this book is about democracy, and we will see how democracy has expanded in this chapter itself. Expansion of democracy mainly, and the global democracy, this is what we are going to study in this chapter. So friends, let us start. And here the two tales of democracy that I told you about, Chile and Poland, it is given, but it is largely historical, telling you how the regime changed from this to that, and explaining you the features. When the first regime was there, that is non-democratic was there, military rule was there, then these were the features, the rights were curtailed. And when there was democratic government, so this was there. So this is how you have to study, and I am leaving these things for you people. Okay, so I hope you will study cursorily, not in very much details friends. The thing is that friends, after you will read all these things, then you will come to analyze, realize that in a democracy two features are very important friends. This I have underlined, that in a democracy, democracy is a form of government that allows people to choose their rulers. Okay, and in a democracy two things are very important friends. This we should keep in mind. One thing is that leaders are elected by people. Only leaders elected by people should rule the country. This is one very important aspect. Only leaders elected by people should rule the country. That means people will elect who will rule the country. Okay, so this is one thing. We also know we are of the people, for the people, by the people. And the second thing is that people have the freedom. People have the freedom of expression, friends. This is very important for democracy, because in a democracy there is focus on dialogue, discussions, deliberations, and this will happen when the people will have freedom of expression, then when they will have the freedom to give a dissent also. So this thing is very important. Again, the right to organize, freedom to organize should also be there. Otherwise no political parties will be there, no coming together of various sections of the people for their cause. For example, there was one organization for Lokpal bill, we have seen in the past. And again, the freedom to protest, this is also one very good and very important pillar of rights. In a democracy people should enjoy friends. Okay, protest should also be allowed. That's why they will give their dissenting opinion, that no, we are not we do not agree with this point or this type of policy. So in a democracy these two things are very important. Rulers should be elected by the people, and the second thing is that people should have certain rights, freedom to express views, freedom to organize, and freedom to protest friends. So this was important, the crux of those two tales friends. Okay, which you will study, and you will come to understand. Now see friends, the changing map of democracy, this is also not very important. In fact, this is analysis of three maps. This is one map. This is 1900 to 1950. This is 1900 to 1950 friends. Then we can see so many countries are not democratic, but after this 1975, some countries in this region, you can see in this region, they have become democratic country. Then after 2000, so many countries have become democratic. This is how the world is becoming more and more democratic. That means more and more countries are, in fact I should say that more and more countries are becoming democratic. The world is becoming democratic, that is not appropriate to say. Anyways, so this is how the expansion of democracy is, and these are some observations from those maps. These things that I am underlining, drawing lines, these things are observation from those maps friends. Okay, so this is also not that much very important. uh, This third is phases in the expansion of democracy. Friends, this we will discuss a bit, and the next part, that is democracy in the world at the global level, that will be very much important part of this chapter, friends. So first let's discuss the phases in the expansion of democracy. In fact, in this chapter, three phases has been defined. One is the beginning, and that relates to the French Revolution, and relates to the British era revolution, also English Revolution, that is said, and of course the War of American Independence, friends. So if we see about the beginning, then the democracy began at least 2 centuries ago. 2 centuries ago means when French Revolution and American Revolution type thing. And in fact, there was popular uprising in France, and it was French Revolution. But French Revolution, in fact, could not establish a stable democracy in France. Many a times, democracy was established, thrown again, established. Many such things happened there in France. But the French Revolution, of course, influenced the struggles for democracy all over Europe. And friends, in case of India also, we can see how the French Revolution, often in modern history we will find that French Revolution inspired the Indian freedom struggle: liberty, equality, freedom. And in fact, these three ideals, liberty, equality, freedom, of French Revolution, can be found in our preamble also, friends. So this is how French Revolution has inspired struggles for democracy all over the world. In Britain also there was democracy, progress towards democracy much before the French Revolution. This is what it is saying. But friends, see, the beginning of democracy was there 200 years ago, but universal adult franchise was not there. In fact, the right to vote was granted to very few people. Uh, in fact, the right to vote was granted to more and more people, but not to all the people. This is what it is. Okay. uh, for example, women were not allowed to vote in US until this 1920s. The blacks were not allowed to vote. Similarly, those who were owning property, only those few people could vote, meaning that even if democracy, some sort of democracy was there some 200 years ago, but universal adult franchise like things was not there. That is, political equality was not there, friends. Okay, political equality was not there. I will tell you what political equality means. See, but the right to vote was limited to very few men. The beginning phase of democracy, right to vote was limited. Okay, but in 19th century, the struggle for democracy emphasized on political equality, freedom, and justice. But after these 200 years, when 19th century came, then there was more and more focus for what? For more right to vote to all people. Okay, that is political equality. In fact, friends, political equality means one person, one vote, one value. This is what political equality. That means, irrespective of gender, caste, religion, anything, one person will carry one vote and one value of vote. Okay, this is what it is. In fact, it can be said to be adult suffrage, universal adult franchise. So for these things, there were struggles in 19th century. Okay, friends. So this we should keep in mind, that right to vote was very limited during the beginning phase. Then comes the second phase of this expansion of democracy, that is end of colonialism. There was a decolonization, and then there was more and more countries becoming independent, and they were opting for the democracy. India, also being a newly independent country, adopted democracy. Similarly, other countries also, many Latin countries, African countries. But in case of India, we can see that in case of India, it has been very successful, but it has not been successful in all cases. And in fact, we can take one example of Ghana. Ghana. In fact, Ghana, the president of Ghana, though he was a friend of Jawaharlal Nehru, he got himself elected president for life. Now, president for life, ruler for life, it means people will not decide that the ruler has to go and a new ruler has to come. In fact, the ruler should be elected by the people. This basic maxim, the first feature of democracy that we discussed above, is nullified, neglected. It means that Ghana is now no longer democratic when this was done, president for life. It means that what this is being argued here, that many countries could not succeed as democracy as such, though India succeeded. This is what the second phase we can see. Then some examples of Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal. Some recent, because this book was published during those time, some years back, several years back. So examples are not very much relevant. In fact, the recent phase, now let us come to the recent phase, friends. So the next big push towards democracy came after 1980s, as democracy was revived in several countries of Latin America. And in fact, there was disintegration of Soviet Union also, so many countries became independent. And when many countries became independent, they opted for the democracy. So the recent phase is from 1980s onwards, friends. Okay, so this is the third phase, friends. In Eastern Europe, largely it was seen. And of course, some recent examples, though I talked about these things in the previous one, I am sorry for that, but this one is recent examples during 2005 of Pakistan, Bangladesh and Nepal, but these are not very relevant, friends. Okay, anyways, so these three phases of democracy we have discussed, phases in the expansion of democracy. uh, Now let us see democracy at the global level, friends. Friends, we must keep in mind that such a debate should be read also, the student and teachers, because this makes you more clear about what we are going to discuss in the chapter, in the next paragraph, next topics. So this should be read. Okay, friends. But I'm not leaving that for you people. The most important part is that, does an increase in the number of democratic countries means that there will be more democracy in the world? But we will see that no, it is not so. Even if there are more countries which are democratic, but it does not mean that in the world there is more democracy. In fact, the yardstick, friends, somewhere I will tell at a later stage. Yes, not here. That yes, I will tell later. Anyways, so the question is that we are discussing, that if more and more countries are democratic, does it mean that in the world there is more democracy? But it may not be so, friends. We will see later at stage that many institutions, world institutions are there, but they are not democratic. Why not democratic? Because the countries are not having equal say in the decision making, although they may be affected by the decision, but they do not have the equal say in the decision making. We will discuss these things, friends. Okay, so keep it in mind. As of now, what we have to think is that in the world there is no government like there is government in India and USA, friends. So in the world there is no government. Now when in the world there is no government, then the problem is that when there is no government, who people will elect to rule? So the first criteria, that rulers should be elected by the people, is cannot be there when there is no world government. So the first feature of democracy, that at the beginning itself we discussed, cannot be there. Then the second thing is that when there is no ruler and no ruled, in that case, what is the utility that people should have some basic political freedoms? The meaning of people enjoying basic political freedoms will be when there will be ruler and ruled relationship. Now this is what, so both these features are not going to be very effective when there is no world government, friends. When no world governments, then these two features of democracy are going not going to be crystallized. This is what. But friends, now the thing is that, if even if there is no world government, even if there is no single world government, okay, but there are institutions, global institutions, whose works are many a times similar to the functions of a government, friend. And we will see some examples. See, there are organizations of the world, but they cannot command countries and citizens in a way the government can. This is one difference. In a country, government can command the citizens, but in the world, global level, institutions are there. They have work similar to the governments, like making international law. We will see C clause related laws are there, but they cannot command the countries or the people of the countries to follow them and to obey their orders. Why? Because here the concept of sovereignty comes. Okay, friend, somewhere we will discuss about it also, sovereignty. That means no external force can ask any country to take any decision if it is an independent country. Okay, so the external global institutions cannot force a country to take a stand or a decision, or to obey their commands. This is the thing, friends. I hope you are getting my points, friends. If you don't get my points, when we will come online, please let me know. I will make things very clear, because difficulty is there in the virtual world when you people are not sitting in front of me. I am also facing problems, but I hope you will support my efforts with your efforts. Anyways, so now let us come to see, friends, who makes the so now friends, let us take one example of this sea related clause. Okay, who makes rules and laws to govern the seas that do not fall within the boundaries of any one country. So the laws of the seas, we will see this also, whether in foundation class or somewhere we will see United Nations Convention on Laws of the Sea. So the laws of the sea has given some rules and regulations for the world to follow the rules regarding seas. Okay, for example, territorial waters, exclusive zones are there, EEZ are there, then there is high seas, these things are there. So regarding this, there is one law as per the UN clause, UNCLOS, convention on law of seas. So this is how the laws and rules regarding the world has been framed by world level organization, that is UN has many conventions, and they have in that conventions come on have decided to uh, have many cooperation and in the field of international law, security, economic development, social equality, all these things are there. So there is global institution, friends. This is what we are arguing, okay, for many things where international interests are involved, and one best example is laws for siege. Okay, now the second thing is that if countries attack another country, then who are going to ensure the peace and security? Then United Nations Security Council is there. Similarly, there are organizations like IMF and World Bank. They give loans to the countries to help them have the strong economic conditions. So this is how there are various global institutions, friends. They have roles similar to governments. For example, providing security, UNSC, United Nations Security Council, providing security. United Nations conventions are there for having consensus on international law, social equity, and various things. Similarly, for economic conditions, there are global organizations like IMF and World Bank. So these are doing the work of governments. Okay, now see, friends, the question arises: are these their decisions democratic? Are these institutions having the features of democracy? Then here comes the yardstick, friends, that I was discussing about. The yardstick, the yardstick for being democratic is that each of the countries, whether they have free and equal say, in the decisions that affect them. This, that is, if any decision is being taken and those who are getting affected by that decision, do they have a say in that decision making process as equal, participant? Then democracy is existing. But we will see that this is not in case of United Nations also. For example, United Nations Security Council, we will see that in case of United Nations Security Councils, the real powers with 5 permanent members. This is what we know, friends. So the decision is taken by only 5 permanent members, and even in that case, one country is giving its veto on some substantive matter, then that decision is not taken. So how we can say that the yardstick, that every country who is getting affected by that decision is having a free and equal say in the decision making process? We cannot say that United Nations Security Council is democratic in that sense. Friends, this is one very important question for written examination also. UNSC reform is always often in news, and this is very much important. G4 countries are there, and see, friends, in fact, there is demand that the UNSC should be made more and more democratic and representative. More democratic means that the decision making should involve those who are getting affected. They should have equal and free say. And the second thing is that more representative, that means countries from Africa are not having representation in UNSC permanent membership. This is how it is. So this is one argument, that yes, there are global institutions performing functions like governments, but uh, they are not democratic in real sense. Okay, friends, this is how one argument is there, and you will be reading all these things. Similarly, one more example I can cite out is IMF. See, friends, IMF may in IMF there are 188 member states, but they do not have equal voting rights. This is also important for prelims. Okay, that in IMF all countries do not have equal voting rights. One country, one vote, one value. This is not so. In fact, the value of vote is determined by how much contribution that country is making in IMF. So is the case with World Bank also. So the voting pattern is skewed. Some countries getting more weightage of their weight, and some countries getting less weightage. So how equal say is there? Is there equal say in the decision making process? No. Then these institutions are also not democratic if we go through that yardstick, friends. This is what it is. Then again, if we will see, friends, then there is American dominance that affects the working of international organization. In recent times also, WHO funding was there, UNESCO last year, then Paris Pact was there when US withdrew. Similarly, there are many places, global institutions where America has its dominance, friends. That's why there is lack of democracy, okay, in global institutions, friends. Then it can be said, in fact it can be said that mm, global institutions are not democratic. It is a question being raised, if global institutions are not democratic, are they at least becoming more democratic than before? Here that evidence is not very encouraging. This is how the opinion is, that the world is there may be more democratic countries in the world, but the world is not becoming so democratic, friends. Okay, this is how we have argued. In fact, uh, one more aspect, that even if world is not becoming that more democratic, but there is urge from the people, civil society, who are getting opportunities in this era of ICT, information technology revolution and globalization, that they are coming together, civil society is coming together and discussing on various matters of national international importance, shared interest, and there is dialogue, discussions, and many research papers, many things are there, friends. So there is an urge coming from people who get more opportunities to come in touch with one another. So somewhere we can see that people of different countries are coming together, even there is, if there is no government support, but they are coming together, so the world is becoming democratic in that sense, friends. Okay, this is how we can say. Now, friends, one more topic that we have to study is democracy promotion. Friends, in fact, in this case, the debate is that America invaded Iraq. And why? Because America thinks that has taken the task of democracy promotion in the rest of the world. That means where there is no democracy, the values of democracy uh, should be imposed there. In fact, this is how America is doing. And in fact, on Iraq there was attack, and that attack was also in the under the garb of weapons of Iraq possessing weapons of mass destruction. In fact, there was dictatorship of Saddam Hussein also, that was to be removed, and democracy was to be restored there, to be established there, friends. But friends, four important questions are being raised here, and this is what we need to understand. First question, is this the right way to promote democracy? That some external power coming and imposing democracy. Should a democratic country wage a war and invade other country for establishing democracy there? So this is one question. The second question is that, can if, there be external help in establishment of the democracy? The third is that, even if external intervention, if there it is successful in restoring the democracy, will democracy will survive? So this is the third question. And the fourth question is that, if there is use of external force, is it in the spirit of democracy itself? So four questions are important. First is it right that a democratic country invading other democratic country and imposing democracy? The second question, is it right that external help can establish democracy? Third, if it is successful in establishing the democracy, can that democracy survive? And the fourth is that, is it a democratic way if external force is being used to give democracy to the people? Is it in the spirit of democracy? Friends, these questions are very much important, and you should think over these questions. The first question is that, the answer to first question should be that it is not good way to promote democracy. Okay, democracy should not be done by waging a war. It is, in fact, waging a war is against democracy, because democracy is about deliberation, discussions. Okay, it is not about war, waging a war. Okay, second thing is that, does external work help? So external work may not help, because in case of Iraq, democracy is not even today. So external work help may not help in establishing a successful democracy, friends. And because this is because the democracy has not come from within. If we take the example of India, in case of India, the democracy has not been imposed. Rather, it has come from within. The people of India themselves, they came together. They even after having so much diversity, they came together and decided that they will have Indianness. They will have one country like India, and then the Indian democracy has flourished and has been successful. That means instead of external use, external force, there should be people led, people owned process for establishment of democracy in the country, and only then that democracy will survive. And if some external force is coming and imposing that democracy, even if successful, it will not succeed. Why? Because the people are themselves divided. They have not developed a consensus, and that consensus would have developed when those people have come together. जब साथ आए होते वो लोग, तब एक कंसेंसस डेवलप हुआ होता उनमें. इन दैट केस they would be able to sustain the democracy. This is what it is being argued. This is how, friends, this is chapter, and I hope you people enjoyed this chapter. Friends, your comments should be there also. So now we will start the second chapter also, friends. To what is democracy and why democracy. Friends, in this chapter we will be discussing, though there are so many things, but we will be discussing the simple definition of democracy, and then we will see how it is inadequate, what more things should be added to the definition. Then we will see why democracy is needed, what are arguments against democracy, and then we will also see some broader aspect of democracy, that is the broader idea of democracy at the end. Anyways, friends, let us start this chapter. And what is democracy, why define democracy? Yes, what is democracy you can read, why define democracy you can read this also. For example, this debate, ongoing debate between students and teachers. So one point I can cite out why we should define democracy, because words remain the same but their meaning may change with time. And in case of democracy, we have seen how 200 years ago there was no adult suffrage, but in the 19th century there was more focus that in democracy there should be adult suffrage. On the concept of political equality there was emphasis. So the meaning changes with time. So definition is important. So you will read people these things. Now let us start the most important aspect, the simple definition. Democracy is a form of government in which rulers are elected by the people. So in case of Saudi Arabia, rulers are not elected by people, so they are not democracy. So this is the simple definition. But friends, is this definition adequate? This is the debate that we are going to discuss in this chapter, friends. And for that, friends, features of a democracy we will see, and we will be taking examples also given in this book. So democracy is a form of government in which rulers are elected by the people, but there are other riders also, friends, and there are 4 or 5 riders. The first rider is that who are the rulers in this definition. Means that we will see that rulers who are elected by the people, if they are not enjoying the major decision making power, then this definition that rulers are elected by people has no significance. Okay, so if we take example of India, then the major decisions are taken by Prime Minister and the Council of Minister at union, or CM and Council of Minister at state level. Bureaucracy is also taking various decisions, but they are not taking the major decisions. Okay, so this is how the real power should be vested in the rulers elected by the people. They should enjoy the decision making power, final decision making power. So this is what we will see. Then the second rider with that simple definition is that election. What election constitute a democratic election? Because many a times election is held at regular intervals, and many examples in this world are we can see. Even then it cannot be said to be democracy. Why? Because election may not be fair, may not be free, it can be rigged. So this is the second important aspect when we see the simple definition of democracy. Now the third is that who are the people who can elect the rulers or get elected as rulers. That is whether adult suffrage is there or not, whether political equality is there or not. That means one person, one vote, one value is there or not. If these things are not there, then again the meaning of that simple definition of democracy has no significance, friends. Similarly, the next rider is that what kind of form of government is democracy. It is about the limitations on the government, because in a democratic government we will always see that there are limitations on the government. For example, in case of India, there is limitation on the government that they have to protect the fundamental rights of the citizens. They cannot take away the fundamental rights of citizens, and they have to respect the right to dissent, right to give opinion, right to freedom of expression, right to life, all these rights of citizens. So certain
political rights of the citizens are to be respected by the government. That means there are limitations of the government. If we will see some examples, we can see that people are elected by the rulers are elected by the people through elections, but now they have turned undemocratic. Now they are imposing curbs on the rights of the people, so that government will not be democratic. That means a democratic government need to have limitations and need to ensure that the rights of the people, basic rights, political rights of the citizens are protected, friends. Okay, you got this point, this one. Now let us see some these things in the next paragraphs. So the first aspect that we discussed, that major decisions should be taken by elected leaders, and in this example you will see the example of Parvez Musharraf, how he amended the constitution and took upon himself various powers, the powers to even dismiss the national and provincial assemblies. Okay, friends, now we will see that in Pakistan elections were held and to national and provincial assemblies, but the real powers are not held by those elected representatives. Why? First is that the president can dismiss the national and provincial assembly, so they can be dismissed. Second thing is that the cabinet is civilian cabinet is supervised by a National Security Council in which it is dominated by the military officers. So the real powers are vested in the military officers, not in the elected representatives. This is about the regime of Musharraf. Okay, friends. So this is one example which is saying that even if there are elected representatives, even if there are national and provincial assemblies, even then major decisions are being taken by someone else, the president, the Musharraf, and also taken by National Security Council, dominated by military officers, who are supervising the works of civilian cabinet, supervising the work of those who are elected. It means real powers are not in their hand, friends. So this is one very good example. So they cannot take the final decision, those who are elected, friends. It means that in a democracy the final decision making power must be resting with those people, those who are elected by the people. So with that simple definition, this is the first criteria, that okay, rulers are elected by the people, but also the final decision making power should be with them, na? So this is one thing important along with that simple definition, friends. Okay, now the second thing along with that simple definition required is free and fair electoral competition. And in fact, in this case you will be studying the example of China. In fact, in China, if any person has to get elected, the candidate needs the approval of the party, CPC, Chinese Communist Party, and also only 8 smaller parties which are allied to that CPC can contest elections. So real choice is not there, friends. Okay, in India, anyone above 25, and certain conditions are there, anyone from any religion, caste, from any political party or not, as independent candidate, they can contest elections. So there is real choice to we people. But in this case of China, there is no real choice. In fact, the ruling party is dominating. There is one party, ruling party, and of course those people who are approved by that ruling party, only they can contest elections. So the real choice is not there, friends. Okay, and real choice is not there, friends. And the second thing is that if we see further, friends, a democracy must be based on free and fair elections, where those currently in power have a fair chance of losing elections. So now with that simple definition, we have come to the rider that elections should be giving real choice, real political alternatives. That means the people can remove their rulers and can elect some new ruler. The real choice should be there, and the free and fair election should be there. That means those who are in power, those who are rulers, they have equal chance, fair chance of losing the elections. Okay, so this is how the free and fair elections, and the elections providing real choice to the people to elect their rulers is necessary, friends, along with that simple definition, friends. Now after that, the third thing is that one person, one vote, one value. This is political equality we discussed, friends. Universal adult franchise should be there. So this is also one very important thing, that in a democracy every citizen must have one vote and each vote must have one value. So this is also important. This is in fact democracy is based on this fundamental principle of political equality. So this should also be there. It should not be that people are electing their rulers, but some people who are voting, they have more value of vote, and some people who are lower in the strata, at the lower strata of the society, they have less value of votes. Then again democracy will not be there, and then again that simple definition will prove inadequate, friends. Okay, so I hope you got my points, friends. If you do not get my points, you can ask me questions when we will be online, face to face. Anyways, the next aspect is this rule of law and respect for rights. That is, rule of law means government should obey the rules, the constitutional provisions, the constitutional limits imposed on them, friends. This is very important. And one example from Zimbabwe has been given. You can see how elections are held regularly when you will read this. And Mugabe is also popular, but also uses unfair practices in elections. There are public protests and demonstrations which are declared to be illegal. There is a law that limits the right to criticize the president. So all these things are there. That means basic political rights are getting curtailed. Okay, friends. So in this example, we can see that even if there is a popular government, that is ruler is elected by the people. That simple definition. Okay. Even this is the case. Even then the ruler can become undemocratic. Why? Because he is curtailing the basic political rights of the citizens, friends. Okay, so in fact in this we are going to see that before election and after election. Before election the rights should be there. Which rights should be there? That the people should be able to freely think, have opinions, share their opinions in the public, form of associations, protest, all these things, because only then they will be able to they will be able to select and elect their representative, because they have to build opinion whether this candidate is good or bad. So this and how they will come to know? When they will discuss, then they will share their opinion, when they will protest, take other political actions. So before elections these basic rights should be given to people, and only then they can elect their candidates. Then friends, after election, when the government has been elected, it has to rule the government, but within the limit, rule the country, but within the limits of the constitutional provisions, friends. They have their responsibilities and accountabilities also. That's why in a democratic government, rules within limits set by constitutional law and citizen rights is very important. In case of Zimbabwe, Mugabe was what he was doing after getting elected. He was also curtailing the freedom of expression. People cannot criticize president. So what is the meaning of this? It means that it is undemocratic. When right to dissent is not there, right to criticize is not there after he has become president, so democracy is not there. In fact, this is what we are emphasizing, that even after getting elected, the government should be limited by the constitutional provisions. That is, freedom of expression should be there, friends. Okay, fundamental rights should not be curtailed. So this is how we have discussed, friends. Summary definition is that this simple definition, democracy is a form of government in which rulers are elected by the people, is inadequate. In fact, adequacy will be there when the rulers elected have the major decision making powers in their hand, when elections are free and fair and providing real choice to the people, when the choice and opportunity available to the people is on equal basis, that is political equality, equal one vote, one value. And then the choice, then the government is limited by the basic rules of the constitution, that is, there is rule of law. The government is not curtailing the basic political rights of the citizens. When these conditions are there, only then that simple definition will be good enough, friends. This is what we have discussed, friends. Now, why democracy? So again, there is so much debate. You will be reading this debate between students and teachers, friends. Now let us see arguments against democracy. So we will see arguments against democracy. There are many arguments. The first is that leaders keep changing in democracy. This leads to instability. 5 years the prime minister is from right wing, and 5 years the prime minister is from left wing. So there will be instability in the policy making, decision making. Okay. So leaders keep changing in a democracy, and 5 years, even before 5 years, there can be fall of the government. Anyway, the thing is that in democracy, we are in fact now criticizing criticizing democracy, friends. Okay, so the first criticism is that leaders keep changing, and this leads to instability. Then friends, the second criticism is that democracy is about power, competition, power play. Friends, see, in India the major source of corruption is electoral politics. Electoral politics is the major cause of corruption and all malpractices in India. So this is one thing, the ill effect of this democracy. Then people have to be consulted in a democracy. There are so many deliberations, discussions, dialogues, and this leads to delay. So that there is delay in policy making, there is delay in decision making, and we can see how many years have taken to pass some very important bills. Okay, for example, Jan Lokpal bill, 1960s, from that period it started getting debated and could be finalized only recently. Okay, so decision making gets delayed. Then the next criticism is that elected leaders do not know the best interest of the people, because and it leads to bad decisions because they are lay persons. Now if we are electing someone who is above 25 years, so age is the only criteria. So in general democracy, we see that though the parliamentarians are largely laymen, they don't have expertise knowledge, and when they don't have the expertise knowledge, it means that they may take a bad decision. However, it is different aspect that today parliamentarians are well versed, well read, but this is one criticism of democracy, friends. Now, democracy leads to corruption as it is based on electoral competition. So this is one point that we discussed. In fact, the previous point that we discussed, power politics and power play, this can be substantiated by coalition type era. Coalition type era, when horse trading was there, and in fact the electoral politics corruption that I was speaking in that point, that can be here we can see that that in electoral politics in India is the major cause of corruption. Okay, I hope you got my point. Now friends, ordinary people don't know what is good for them, they should not decide anything. This is also one very important criticism of democracy, that ordinary people, how they are going to understand the economic policy of any government. They are not well versed with the economic, fiscal policy and monetary policy, and the government, they are electing the government, so they are not knowing what is going to be good for the economy of India, whether there should be foreign direct investment or not. So these things general people may not be understanding. Even then they are sending their representatives to take decision on these things. So they may not, ordinary people may not know what is good for them. So this is also one argument that is going against democracy, friends. So we can see that democracy is not the magical solution for all the problems, and in fact it is one criticism that we are democratic country, yet we have poverty in India on a large scale, friends. So this is how we discussed all these things. These things we discussed there itself. Now, the real question that we face is different, friends. The real question that we face is different. That is democracy better than other forms of government? Because democracy has many ills also. It has many problems that we discussed, many arguments against it. But now the thing is that we have to compare democracy with respect to other form of governments, and then we have to see whether democracy is a better alternative when compared to them. This is what it is, and in fact we will see that democracy is a better alternative to other forms of government, friends. That's why we support democracy despite its various arguments against it. Now let us see some arguments for democracy, friends. And in this case, one example from China has been taken, that there was China facing one famine, but India not facing famine, and the reason being given that in China there is no opposition party, no multi-party elections, no opposition party, and that's why nobody there to criticize the government policies, and that's why the Chinese government could not be held accountable, friends. But in case of India, opposition party is there, so many parties, multi-party system, many parties are there who are there to criticize the government actions, government policies, and that's why the government is accountable and took proactive decisions, and famine was not there. This is what being argued in all these paragraphs, friends, which I hope you people will study. So the thing is that a democracy requires that the rulers have to attend the needs of the people. A democratic government is a better government because it is more accountable form of government. Yes, friends, this is very important. Democracy ensures accountability of the government, answerability of the government. Accountable is a very big concept, friend. You will study in GS paper 2. But democratic government ensures that the government is accountable. Who hold them accountable? The opposition parties, the other various people also, civil society, all those things. They are asking questions from the government, criticizing their policies. So they are holding the government accountable, friends. So this is one very important aspect, that democracy requires that rulers attend to the needs of the people. If they are not attending to the needs of the people, then the government will be criticized, hold accountable by opposition people, media, civil society, all those things. Then another reason is that why democracy is important, that democracy is based on consultation and discussion, friends. And this consultation and discussion is very important, friends. It is a very important pillar of democracy. If these things are not there, democracy will not be there. And friends, if there is discussion, many people are there, they are discussing, they are having meetings, then the decision making, the quality of decision making increases, friends. Because now when various people are discussing, participating in the discussion, they are giving their own opinion, then various dimensions of that decision to be taken comes before the people. And now the decision making has better quality, friends. For example, in parliament, a debate is there on a given bill, for example land acquisition bill, and the debates bring to us the various dimensions, that the interest of the farmers, the interest of the industries, the interest, economic interest, all those things. So when people are discussing, when people are having consultations, friends, then the outcome is that there will be enhanced quality of decision making, because various dimensions will be considered then, friends. Okay, then another good aspect is that democracy provides a method to deal with differences and conflicts, and this is very important, friend, because if we take example of India, so many diversity is there, every person has his or own culture, language, everything, and differences of opinions are there, different shades of opinion are there. Now if democracy is there, then there is discussion, consultation, and conflict resolution is there, consensus based decision making may be there. So in this case, win-win situation for both parties, all, everybody is participating, and they are deciding what to do, what not to do, based on their interest, but not fighting with each other. Otherwise the majority people who are in power, they will be using brutal power, and when brutal power is there, it means the society will have disturbed peace, the harmony, so the social harmony will be disturbed. But when discussion and dialogue is there, then conflict resolution can also be there, give and take basis of consensus can be built, all these things can be done. So conflict resolution is also one very important aspect where democracy can be supported, friends, particularly in case of India where so much diversity is there. Okay, so democracy is the provides the only peaceful solution to this diversity in India, to accommodate the various shades of opinion, the various interest of the people. Okay, this is the thing. Now, based on these three arguments, the now the strongest argument. Let us see, friends. This is how it is given. The strongest argument for democracy is that in a democracy, the citizens are the masters, friends. And when citizens are the masters, so they enjoy dignity, they enjoy dignity. The principle of political equality may be one example that can say how people are having dignity. Even a person who is very poor, he has one vote and one value, similar to any other person who is very rich. So in that case, we can see democracy enhances the dignity of the citizens. So this is again one more cause that democracy should be favored. So finally, we can say that democracy is better than other forms of government because it allows us to correct its own mistakes also. So it is again one more argument in favor of democracy. If some government is elected and it is taking bad decision, now bad decision has been taken, it is criticized by the people, media, social media, all those things. Now if the government is not correcting itself, it is not taking right course, then in the next election that government can be replaced. And if that government is replaced, the new government will be there. So rulers can be changed if they are not taking a right decision, right policy, friends. So to sum up, friends, democracy cannot solve all our problems, friends, but it has many good aspects that we have seen above. Okay, so democracy is considered as the best form of government, though it is not a panacea for all problems, but it is better than other alternatives, friends. Now friends, to end this chapter, we will be discussing broader meanings of democracy also. So friends, you will study this on your own. The only thing is that democracy we have discussed till now is in the respect of rulers and ruled, but democracy can be applied, the concept of democracy can be applied at various places also. For example, in our family, in any organization. In fact, the basic principle of democracy is that it involves consultation with and the consent of all those who are affected by decision. If any decision is being taken and if someone is getting affected by that decision, so consultation with that person should be there, and the consent opinion of that person should also be included in that decision making. This is the basic principle of democracy, friends. Okay, and if this is done in a family, that means all the family members are participating in any decision making, we say that the family is democratic. Similarly, in case of any organization. So this is how the broader connotation of democracy, it can be applied not only to the government but to family organizations also. This is how, friends, this chapter 2 has been. So friends, we will be discussing next chapters also, and of course you people are welcome to give your comments. See friends, we have limitations because of this virtual aspect, so your efforts should be there also. Okay friends, enjoy. Thank you so much.